So if you have any questions later, feel free to find us, any of the team to talk about it, and we shall answer your question. And also there will be a Q&A section if you want to ask anything. So moving on, this is the child employment chaperone, and then Maria, if you're here.
Thank you, Jerry. So within child employment so far, from a UR perspective, we've the chaperone application will be going, hopefully will be going live by the end of this month. So we thought we'd do some usability testing with some participants before that happens. So we've put together a UR plan. And so we've got, what we'll be doing is having participants. We've recruited 3 participants, and we will be observing how they fill out the form with the dummy data that we will give them. We will also give them attachments to attached within the sections within the form. So we'll go through it page by page, question by question with the participants, and we'll be observing how they're filling out the form, getting their feedback on sort of the process and the flow of the questions, so the flow of sort of the process. So that's ready to go from next week. So the idea really is to just sort of gain some real good insight into sort of measuring how the process is before it goes live. Once that's complete, we have planned to send out surveys. So once the application form has gone live and we have chaperones submitting applications, there will be a survey link attached to the end of the submitted application emails where we will be asking them questions on how they thought the form, the flow of the form, how easy it was to complete, if they had any difficulties with either putting attachments on and so forth. So the idea really is to, the survey will be a long-term research. So we'll find out how the chaperone application is going along months on months on end to see really how it's performing. We will also be doing the same with the staff chaperones. So, the staff who are dealing with the chaperone applications that are coming in. So the idea really is to see how the staff are managing with the case management system from a back office perspective. So how it is, how they're able to navigate, keep on, be able to sort of manage the application flows that are coming through, if they're gathering all the information that is required of the chaperones, and seeing how they're able to sort of manage the case flows and such. So yeah, so that's the idea. So yeah, we'll sort of, it's good to sort of measure. It's been a long process, and the chaperones have now been done. So yeah, it's a good idea to sort of keep on top of the performance of it. Yeah, that's me. Thanks, Cherry.
Thank you. So moving on, we are going to notice of concern. So, Greg?
Sorry, it's gonna be me to start. Yeah, so what we've done, so we've have iterated the notice of concern for questions and content, including guiding page and the form itself for a couple of times based on the feedback from the survey from like our stakeholders, like surveys, safeguarding, like etc. And also we've used some low-fi prototype in Figma, just give the people a taste of what it gonna be look like in the kind of real life. Also, why we did this, so to ensure the form is meeting the needs of the user identified during user testing, and also we try to ensure the form is easy to understand, navigate, and complete. Next slide, please.
Yeah, it's over to me for this one, Oliver. Thank you. Yeah, so we just put out a few of the key points that came out of the playback, really, that Miriam and Chris did a few weeks back, and that we based our iterations on. So users found the form quite long and complicated in some areas. So myself and Oliver have done a bit of work to restructure things. We've used better branching and more conditional logic. So users increasingly only see what's relevant to them. We also did a bit of work to rewrite some of the content in places, so just trying to reduce the amount of text, simplify the guidance, and we reduced the word count by about a third, and that's across the web pages and across the whole form journey as well. Next slide, please. Something else that came out of the playback, so users wanted the option to provide a physical description if they didn't know the name of the child that they wanted to report a concern about. So again, just did a little bit of work with the structure here, adding a question to ask if they know the child's name and age, and then having a conditional follow-up based on that. So a screen to ask for a physical description instead to provide additional information to help the child employment team locate that child without knowing their name or age. Next slide, please. And yeah, the last point I wanted to pull out was around concerns that members of the public, their reports might be given less weight than that of professionals. So the previous question we had was a yes or no as to whether they were a professional. So what we've done is just slightly reworded that, and we've added a question to say which best describes you, and they then select whether they're a member of public or somebody who works with children or families in a professional capacity. And then again, we've used a bit of conditional logic just to show a different contact page for professionals versus members of public. And then the member of public also has the option to report anonymously, which is an option that professionals don't have because we have to legally capture their details. So it just provides an additional anonymous route for members of the public. Back to Oliver, I think, to wrap up. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. We've done a lot of changes based on the UR outcome, based on the feedback. So, and also we've done some update based on some from legal perspective, like privacy notice, etc. So what we're gonna do next is we're gonna confirm functionality for MVP build. So we're gonna kind of work with tech people to talk about what can be realized in MVP. Then after that, we're gonna build the interactive form, then use it to test with customers. I think that's all from Notice of Concern side.
And that'll be me. So for parks, myself and Greg, a few months ago, what we had done is put together an audit, and with that, the audit, what we done was labeled and categorized so we could identify which of the pages were either document pages, directories, downloads, and forms. And then from there, we could also find which pages should and shouldn't be there within parks. And then we could also identify which pages were duplicates. From there, we also added some Google Analytics from the pages for parks, and that was done from the last 3 months. And then the reason that was done is so we could identify which services had the most engagement and the most traffic to them. And then what we had found from them analytics was that the Birmingham Wildlife Conservation Park was highlighted as the one with the most views. And then if you go to the next page, please. Here's a screenshot of the analytics. So the ones highlighted with the red box is the ones that you can see with the most views. They're all linked to the Birmingham Wildlife Conservation Park. And you could see that the homepage had 32,000, which is quite a lot. And Birmingham Wildlife Conservation Park, all the pages there were cropping up quite a lot. So you could see that they were getting a lot of traffic in general. And then followed by the ticket prices, open times, finding us in car parks, and feeding times, etc. If you go to the next slide, please. It's another screenshot of the analytics. So this is specific to the user journey. So starting from the left, the one with the red highlighted line, you can see, so first the users would go to booking their visit with the Birmingham Wildlife Conservation Park, and you could see that would be 9,000 from the last 3 months. And then this is showing the journey. And then what we found is that the users are getting lost, and it was a lot of jumping back and forth, and they weren't finding the pages that they're meant to be going to. So from booking their visit, they'd then go back to the home page. And then the third one, they'd end up on the opening times, and then back to ticket prices and the season tickets. And then they'd go back to the opening times again. And then they'd end up back to the home page of the Birmingham Wildlife Conservation Park. Then they'd end up back to booking their visit. What you can see from the numbers is that we're also losing a lot of traffic, and then the users are also getting lost and not finding what they wanted to find, which is also a problem considering the amount of traffic that this page is getting. If you go to the next page, please. So the next steps, what we done was I put together a user journey that would be better for the users, so they wouldn't be getting lost. So then everything that they wanted to find, all the information, also booking their tickets, would be a lot easier. And then what helped me build this user journey was researching competitors such as Safari Park, Dudley Zoo, and Sea Life, and getting ideas of what to remove and what to implement on the page, and then creating our own user journey that will be better for the users. And if I can share my screen, I will show how that was done. So here you can see this was the old website and the structure of it, and this was on the home page. So you could see in the top first tile, finding us and opening times and ticket prices are all in one, but then you'd see where the users are getting lost because they'd have to go back to the home page to book their visit online. So that was an issue. And then ideally the booking online should be within this. Other problems are also that we could just eliminate, and making the page a lot better was having the open times and finding us all in one page rather than having to go to multiple different pages. And then also, if you look within this section, everything within the park is within one. So you can see that finding out about the park, and then finding out about the animals, the ticket prices and season tickets, then school trips and sponsor an animal, they're all within one document page. So what we could have done was separate them so the user journey is a bit more seamless. And then also here about the feeding times, that there's not actually much information there in general. And then this is the form for the users to book. And then as mentioned before, all the pages are basically all linked in one. So when we done some research on the competitors such as Safari Park and the way their user journey was structured, you can see that everything was organized. So you have the tickets, and then within the ticket prices, you can see the tickets and the passes. In our case, it would be the season tickets, and it's all well structured. And then they also have their different tiles in a drop-down menu to find things a lot easier rather than having everything just basically in one document page. And then ideas to include that we found, which wasn't on our website and then was in other ones, was things such as a park map. So if you're having a wildlife conservation park, you'd want to kind of see the map of the park, and then also an events page to see what events are going on at the wildlife conservation park. And then there was no page to show what animals are actually there as well, so you wouldn't know until you basically arrive. And then if you're trying to plan your journey and you visit, you'd kind of want to know what animals are there and have some kind of information there. So there's some ideas to implement. And then also planning your day. So here you can see like it's well structured. You can see their opening times and events and park map and everything all there. So doing our research, I was able to plan our own user journey and then having it a bit more structured. So within your homepage, you'd have your different tiles. So within the ticket prices, you can book your ticket price. You can see your ticket prices and the season tickets, and then also your school trips. So then you can book online straight there. Whereas before you'd have to go back onto the homepage and book that way. Whereas this is all within the one document page. Also planning your visit, you've got your opening times, finding us and car parking, and then also adding stuff like food and drink, so you can kind of plan your journey of what kind of food and stuff to bring or whether there's stuff there. Explore, so implementing a page for your animals, so you can see what animals are at the Wildlife Conservation Park, and then followed by the feeding times, what events go on at the park, and then also the park map, and then the conservation and endangered species, which is some information, and then also separating this page, which is where you can find out additional stuff such as sponsoring an animal, volunteering for work experience and placements. So these are the changes that were made, and this is the live site right now with the changes made, and you can see that the ticket prices, so the tiles have changed now. So I've implemented the ticket prices and booking online all within one. And then you also have a new tile for planning your visit, exploring the park, and then sponsoring your animals and volunteering as well. And then if I also click into them, you can see that the structure is now a lot better and the user journey should be better now as well, because you can book your ticket and you can see your ticket prices and book straight online, as well as planning your visit. So you've got the opening times and finding us. So all the content is now separated and you can find the information a lot easier rather than having it all within one. Exploring the park, we've now built a carousel for the different animals. And then you can basically see the animals and switch through. Whereas none of this was on the page before, so now you can see what animals are there before planning your visit. I've also implemented a park map, which you can also download, so you can kind of see what animals are there and download the map before coming as well. And then one thing yet that we're waiting for the service is the events page. So I believe they have 2 events that are upcoming. One is for mothers and toddlers. And then they've also got a wildlife academies, which is for children, where you can learn about the animals and stuff like that. And then also within the events page, they do events for Halloween, Christmas and Easter and stuff like that too. So we're just waiting on some information from the service so that can be implemented. And I think that's everything for now. And then I've also still included the booking online. So once you have looked at planning your visit and exploring, you can still book online from here as well, rather than having to go to ticket prices.
Thank
And
you, everyone.
I think that's everything from me.
Thank you. Let me share my screen back. So moving on, we will hand over to Helen to talk about the consolidation.
Hi everyone. That was really interesting, Gurkan. I have now decided that I will be visiting that place very shortly. That your favourite is obviously the red. Is it called the Red Fox? Because he was the biggest on the map. And I will be volunteering and I will be sponsoring an animal. So that was really interesting. Oh, have you popped a question in the chat, Shiraz? How will we track the customer journey now we have published the new pages to see if the changes have made a difference?
Yeah, so the plan with Shiraz, we wanted to get this live just before the school holidays begin. So just like we tracked the user journeys 3 months prior, we'll be tracking them for the next 3 months and seeing the user journeys. And especially we should be getting more traffic than general now anyway, because the school holidays have started. So from now, the site is all live. So the next 3 months we'll be tracking the user journey just to see if it is better. And then also if the users journeys is it's basically they're not jumping around and trying to find different information as it was presented before. It should be a lot easier now, and then we'll see that within the next 3 months. So we're going to be tracking this termly every 3 months, and hopefully we should get some good analytics now as well.
You got your hand up, Shiraz?
I did
Are
have
you,
my
do
hand up.
you want to
Can I
sponsor an
ask
animal as
her?
well?
I wish I could. I've got a tank full of koi fish sponsoring them. Sorry, Gulcher, just a quick question for you. In terms of the map that you've published on birmingham.gov.uk, did you make any considerations for accessibility on the map?
I think
think he's
Gertrude's
froze.
froze.
So I can pick it. I can pick it up with him later. Yeah, carry on, Nick. Sorry.
Brilliant. I want to do a trade in places. I want to go and work. I didn't realise that they BCC staff who work at the Wildlife Conservatoire. Do we know? No. Well, yeah.
I think they're direct employees with the conservation park.
Oh.
To be fair,
Oh, but we could do a
we
little
can always
swap.
investigate for you.
Oh, I will be at the end of this call. Great. Now we move on to consolidation. It's a really interesting project. It's a little bit different. It's around. Do you want to just pop onto the next slide, please? It's again, it's part of the customer program because it's around bringing in efficiencies, but probably more importantly, improving the customer experience. The mad factor around consolidation is there's possibly over 1,000 phone lines that are out there advertised on our website, Birmingham City Council's website, and each of them has a phone number, which technically means they probably have a person or a satellite contact centre working behind them. We have in scope for our consolidation project 6 of those out of that proposed pipeline. These are the 6 ones that are the ones that are identified as we could really make a difference quickly, and are the ones that are high numbers and which our customers, which are the citizens of Birmingham, are using. So if you were at the last show and tell, you would have known what ID phase was. This was the initial discovery phase where we were trying to work with agility. So instead of spending 6 months in one service area and not lifting our heads up, we go out to as many of the 6 as we can, and we run initial discovery phases. So for 6 to 8 weeks, we get high level. What does the service do? How many people, how many processes, and we create that into a short slide deck. We play it back so everybody is supportive and is receiving regular communication to realise actually they're right. We need to now go into a deep dive phase. We need to learn more. So we are about to talk to you about our first experience of deep dive. This is the first time BCC has done this internally. We have had external companies come in to do it, but now we are doing it internally, which is incredibly empowering. So the outcome of deep dive phase, DD phase, is to go in there, look at the initial discovery phase, and start to understand, right, what processes are in scope here, which ones really would benefit from improvement and the efficiencies, and we start to understand what the processes look like. So we are doing process mapping, which is what you're going to hear about today. Once we've done the full deep dive, it will have numerous outputs. There's about 5 or 6 of them encompassed in an overarching business case. Normally runs, I think, between 12 and 20 weeks. And then we will present that back to heads of service. We'll go to, we'll validate it, and we'll go to trade union discussions, and then we'll look to move the service over into the contact centre. I won't read out everything on the slide. The slide decks are there for you to have a look at, and we're always here to have a chat. Chris, do you want to go on to your slide next?
I think it's Oliver, but
is it Oliver?
On, please,
I'm not driving.
Yeah.
Okay, Oliver, take it away.
Yeah, sure. So we are now in weeks 5 to 7 of deep dive. So And then what we're doing now is just capture in the process mapping, work closely with SMAs in service area, and then we kind of use this map to prepare or to create our to-be journey. So how did we do our kind of process capture? And so we got a kind of overview map for the whole process from high level. Then we got this kind of sub-process map for the different service requirements, and we just kind of use different stakeholders to represent different swim line. Then we kind of put into the steps they gonna do. Then we use Arrow to connect them. So why we do this, because it's compared to the peer work, this way gonna be clearer for people to read and to imagine the whole flow of the service. Yeah. Next slide, please. I'll hand over to Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Oliver. So as Oliver was saying, the process mapping, which the team's been doing, has done a really good job of establishing and looking into and mapping the what. So kind of what processes these teams are doing, how they function in interaction with the customer. And what we wanted to do to complement that was run some user research to look at the how. So we ran interviews with members of each process team to get a sense of their experiences, their skills, the necessary knowledge, training, pain point, and generally overall ideas of what an efficient service looks like. So what we were aiming to do there really was flesh out what it's like to work in a customer-facing position in invoicing, billing, or direct payments, for instance, so that we could capture information and their experiences, which will help with any move to the contact center. So what we did, we conducted those interviews, and then we wrote up our process-specific findings in the relevant reports. So the different process reports, process design reports we've been doing. But we also, as a team, was that a hand up? Sorry, I thought I saw someone's hand go up. Not to worry. So yeah, we did that process-specific finding, and we also did some affinity mapping as a team, which is where we looked at all the different responses we got and the different results and tried to group them together as a service-wide thing to pull out any findings. And so based on that, we got these high-level service-wide findings, which we have shared with the service area for validation as well in the playback session. And out of those high-level findings, we identified a few kind of high-level headline results. First of those being that this is quite a complex role, and that might sound obvious perhaps from the outside, but it is worth kind of hearing from the staff what they thought of the complexity and the intricacies of their own role. So it's complex for a variety of reasons. One is that the staff said there's no such thing really as a typical phone call, so it's not necessarily a case you could just answer a script. They do have spreadsheets of standard answers, so if someone phones in with query X, you'd go to kind of response Y. That is not all cases though, so staff need to be able to kind of interpret calls and respond to them as and when they come in. It's also complex because there's just a lot of knowledge that's involved, so they need to know how the different processes operate. They need to know the case history of anyone who's phoning in with a query. There's lots of different IT systems, there's lots of different legislative impacts, and then also skills. They need to have quite a high attention to detail, quite a good degree of written accuracy, really strong at communication skills and emotional intelligence, because these are often quite sensitive subject matters, and people are often phoning in either as vulnerable adults or in a position of being distressed or frustrated. And so there needs to be quite that high degree of interpersonal skill for staff to handle calls and provide excellent customer service. So that follows in really to the next part, which is training. And we identified during the user research kind of two branches of training which could be received. So one of those we called formal, and that's basically any set learning modules on something like the e-learning platform or any externally delivered resources or internally delivered training. So when you might set aside an hour and go do this learning, that's kind of one provision for education there. The other thing we found that was really interesting and quite informative was the fact there's a huge amount of informal education and training that goes on. So staff let us know that they just learn from each other a great deal, either through observation or through shadowing or just conversations. People will find a new tip to use an IT system particularly efficiently, and they'll let other people know as well. So yes, there's the formal provision of information and skills, but there's a lot of kind of learning on the job. And someone compared it to, it's like skills from a video game. So the more you practice those skills, the better you get at them. And again, looking at this from the perspective of consolidation, that's quite an interesting thing for us to bear in mind, because there's a lot of skills and knowledge, and some of that is provided by this formal training. We need to give some consideration, if you like, to how that shortfall might be met. If there's a lot of informal on the job education, can we still provide that? Another fairly important one was well-being. Like I said, it's often quite heavy phone calls, and staff need to be able to be equipped to deal with those. So one of the things when moving into a call center is there needs to be consideration of how taking breaks changes, for instance. So going from existing patterns to call center model patterns, how will that work? Will it have any impact on staff well-being? It's something that's worth bearing in mind, as is the variety of work that staff are doing. They said they quite like doing non-phone work. And also there's several systems in place currently where people can go to helplines or go to different resources that they're given as part of their team to help with their well-being and their mental health. And again, these are all factors which are good to be useful to consider as we move from the as-is to the to-be. And then the kind of final quick user research insight we found was a slightly surprising one, in that they used to be on a system called Cirrus, which recorded data and calls and managed things in one particular way. Then there's a move to Microsoft Teams. And what we learned in user research is that a lot of people actually prefer the Cirrus platform. There's a sense that there's generally better call management, there's better oversight of staff, so just all around better for planning and managing workflows. And together with the business analysis work, we've identified that as a quick win, and it's a recommendation that Cirrus is re-implemented. So that's a relatively quick rundown of the user research. Now, if you just go to the next slide, please, Cherry, I'll go over some of the team's achievements over the last 6 weeks or so. Cool, thank you. So the main output is it's basically a documentation and report project. Sorry, I thought I saw another hand go up. I don't know if Teams is giving me ghost attendance or something. Sorry, yeah, the main output is that we set out to document these as-is processes and structures for the 5 main processes within client financial services. And we basically achieved that. We've got some process design reports written up. They need some amendments, they need some areas fleshed out, but we basically got kind of really good foundations for any decisions going forward. So as they've been validated, it means that the process maps at least have been validated, so the service area are happy that they're a true reflection of what's going on, and they form the basis of our reports and will be used for modelling to be in the contact centre. As I kind of just mentioned there as well, the other main output has been the reports. Those are currently going through peer review, where we're getting feedback on the draft, and we're kind of addressing any comments to give any more information that's needed about how the service areas operates. And so once those are fully done, they'll include the process maps, and they'll also include background data, different bits of context, and then things like the user research observations, recommendations, risks, pain points, and so on. And then those reports will probably be used to make decisions on this process by process basis to establish what happens next. And so finally, one of the main aims of the project as it currently stands has been thinking a bit more long-term, a bit further ahead, in that there will be other services after these ones which we're looking at now, which will be reviewed as potential candidates for consolidation. And what we've done over the last few months has been to put together really a standardized, repeatable process, including JIRA tickets, our ways of working, which we've documented. We put together loads of report templates and briefing documents to help service areas be brought up to speed with what consolidation is and why it's taking place. We've got forecasts which can be adjusted up or down depending on the size of the service. And we've also put together some internal process maps. I say that's all Oliver's work. He's done a really good job of kind of mapping out what initial discovery looks like and what deep dive looks like. So we've got all those in place. And that means that whatever team looks at services at a later date, they'll have all this legwork which they can use to work at pace, and we'll be able to give accurate estimations of timescales early on. Next slide, please, Cherry. Thanks. This is just a really quick picture of our Miro with roughly 50 sub-processes mapped out. So, like I said, there are five processes, sorry, each with about maybe 10 sub-processes. And when you put them together, we've got a Miro board that's really, really full of all these diagrams. And I think it just nicely wraps up what the team's accomplished in this deep dive phase. It's made the Miro, I think, quite slow to use, but it's just a good indication of our outputs. And I admit, I think we had a tough time following Parks, and it's nowhere near as interesting to look at as a Red Panda or an Otter. But I think we're quite proud of it anyway, and it just shows the scale of everything we've done across quite a small team in a relatively short time. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you, Cherry.
Thank you, Chris. Ever humble as always. The team have really pulled together, and we don't tend to recognise people by what their role is or what their grade is, because we're all team members and we're all working towards the one goal. If somebody stuck on something, everybody gets stuck in and tries to help them. Chris is a bit of a legend at that. He's helped, well, completed pulling this slide deck together. I was also involved in the affinity mapping that you did, and it was just, I learned so much. And just today we've been in a session with Shiraz, and we were learning how do you actually approach modelling the 2B, which is our next piece of work. So it really is collaborative, and we really do enjoy working together. So what are the lessons that we've learnt? Allowing enough time for engagement with business areas and members of the public. I was actually looking online, and there's a stat there that one customer journey to create end-to-end takes 73 hours, which is 2 working weeks. This is the first time we've done it, and we've probably done it quicker than that for 5 processes that we've done, because we've done that times 5. And it's allowing getting that engagement, because they're all out there doing jobs, these service areas, and we go in there and we ask them, and they really have to, you know, work with us, and it's hard work for them and it's hard work for us, and we really are appreciated for their time, but we really need to make clear how much time we need, and we will do that as we move through the project, working with new service areas. And of course, Andy Rogers is not on the call. How could we forget Grandmaster? If you ever speak to Andy, ask him why his nickname is Grandmaster. It'd be interesting to see what he says. Clear engagement with SMEs, make sure everybody knows what we're doing and why. This is something that we picked up. It really is important that it's a prerequisite that everybody of the service area we're working with knows why we're there and what we're doing, and that we are impartial. We have continually communicated, and we collaborate with our service areas, so they're never in the dark, and they will be with us on the modelling stage as well. Continue collaborative teamwork, I touched on that earlier. We're constantly in communication, and we continue weekly to review our planning. Be more prepared for any resistance to change. I think unless you're a seasoned consolidation group or company, this one's always going to catch you out. So it's about how to be creative and work around it and work smarter. Thank you. Next slide. I think it's the last slide from us. Roadmap and next steps. So we inherited a roadmap, and it looked quite similar to this, but as we've gone through, we've realised that it probably needs to change slightly. We've adapted it. We've moved from different service areas when they weren't ready, and it is huge support from the customer programme, who are managing the higher powers above, who really do understand this is the first time we've done something like this in-house. Everybody works together, giving us the support that we need to understand the areas that we're not really that clear on. We are hoping to be at a point at the end of August, we can move into a trade union phase, subject to everything being validated and signed off. to then look at our first transition over to the contact centre in September time. What we will be doing ahead of that in true agility style is moving this service area over to Cirrus, move them back to Cirrus because that's what they want, and it will help a lot with reporting and just them managing themselves and the contact centre getting that view. And that's the end of the show and tell. Any questions?
Not a question, Helen, but excellent, well done, sterling job. And it was as interesting as the animals I found.
Such a smooth. You've learnt that off Shiraz, Nikki.
Oh, please.
Just not a question as such, but I was just thinking whether you could talk to the audience about, I think, whilst we focused on adults client financial services, what also happened last week with bereavement and registrars as well.
Oh yeah, well I had left it nameless, but yes, it's adults and social care that we're working with at the moment, and we met with so because we're not running this true waterfall, we're doing one and then we move on to the next. We're working. We've already done four out of the 6 of the ID phases. The other 2 are currently we're just awaiting for the start dates. And we met with registrars and bereavements who actually threw us a bit of a curveball because if anybody, you'll likely have used the service and you'll know how busy they are and they never sleep. There's always a new birth or several new births a week. And they basically says we're going to be really difficult giving you this time we need. You certainly can't really have about 7 or 8 hours from our team in one go. So, and I've got to say it was yourself, Shiraz, who come up with, well, why don't we try shadowing? And they were really welcoming to that because they knew that there was areas in the service that could be enhanced, and they welcomed it and they said, yeah, that we can do that. Let's meet and find a date that works. So there was essentially a blocker there, which didn't become a blocker, and we were able to move past it. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Shiraz?
Perfect, Helen, as usual.
Smooth.
There is a hand up.
There's a
Lau,
hand
do you
up,
want to come
yeah.
in?
Yeah, excuse my ignorance, but what attention is being paid to the language being used on the website overall, to be fair, without use of acronyms or jargon, because there's quite a bit that I've heard so far, and that's obviously because you're very familiar with it, whereas I'm not. But I've always talked about basically the use of plain English, and unfortunately plain English on our websites isn't, just like some of its functionalities, somewhat hit and miss.
We take your point, Lau. I don't know if Greg or Guttrell wants to come in just around some of the principles that they're using around language and style, the tone.
Yeah, I can come in, Nikki. We do try and use plain English, Lau. That is part of the approach in the web content team. But yeah, I mean, if you got any examples where it's not being used, we'd love to see it, and we can potentially look at that and make some improvements. So yeah, all is to, if you've got any examples of where you think it's not being used. So but certainly in the work we're doing in CSP, we're always striving to use plain English. So yeah.
I think realistically, the only advice I can offer you is that basically, if you're familiar with it, but nobody else is, or if you're using it as an acronym, just shorten something, it's a good chance somebody else isn't going to understand it.
Yeah.
And so basically, it should be changed. I mean, like I said, we all come from a professional background. I come from a legal professional background. Unfortunately, it's difficult to stop yourself from doing it. But obviously, once you've got it on paper, either somebody else seeing or the actual, I think the Society of Use of Plain English
will review these things, although, you know, that may take some time. But I think really what it comes down to is how, you know, if you, I think there's some statistical analysis that was made that the average reading age of a Birmingham resident is something around an 8-year-old. So if you come from that background, I think you can't go wrong.
So I think that plays in nicely. I think Shiraz is going to come in and just address precisely what we've been doing in terms of the user research and some of the principles that we've used around the content. Shiraz?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Lau, probably an important point. There's quite a lot of activity happening on birmingham.gov.uk. So we've got a DTS product team who are looking at the site at the same time to see what that site's going to look like going forward. It's the first time, certainly that I'm aware of, that we've kind of like started to inherit GDS or central government best practice principles around how we need to be writing for the web. We're taking that insight and intelligence from data in terms of reading ages within Birmingham. So just to give you a level of confidence on the customer program, when we've been looking at rewriting content to those best practice guidelines, we have tapped into schools within Birmingham with 9-year-old children to kind of like look through that content to ensure we're getting the right feedback to say, is it understandable? Are we using jargon? Are we using plain and simple English? And we've had some brilliant pictures come back from them and how they interpreted that content. I think, like he says, it's a journey that we need to take. The customer expectations are changing and we're getting to know customers a lot better now, and we're going on this journey to make those improvements. I know the DTS product team are also on that same journey and kind of like making that digital front door that is engaging with customers in Birmingham to be a seamless journey.
I can't see any more hands, Cherry.
You've
I
got
think
Simon there.
Oh, Simon. Oh, Simon, sorry, didn't mean to miss you.
So web content isn't my area, but I just wanted to come in on the average reading age in blah 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 thing, because it is a long-standing, long-term button of mine. My understanding is there is no such statistic as what the average reading age in any given place is. There are various readingability analyses that exist. It's the Literacy Trust, I think, who mainly do them, but they don't talk in terms of an average reading age. They talk in terms of cohorts of people who have attained certain expected reading abilities. The reason why I mention it as a thing that is a button that I'm reacting against is because when people start to focus on the average reading age, that actually tends to be a distraction from creating good plain English, because they then start trying to chase word counts on the word analytics tools rather than actually doing qualitative analysis. So yeah, I just wanted to mention that.
Thanks, Simon. I don't know. I can't see any more hands, Cherry. So
if you guys don't have any more questions, this is the end of the show and tell. And if you do, feel free to message any of the team members and ask the questions. Thank you everyone for joining today.
thank you all.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Cherry.
for hosting,
Thanks everyone.
Cherry.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.